Welcome, everybody, to an all-new episode of Fighting Lines with Brian Ciano, our first of the 2026 season. Thank you so much for joining me as I take my weekly look at everything going on in the world of combat sports. Took a little bit of an extended break there for the holidays and other things going on that kind of delayed our return, but we are back, just like the UFC here, to talk combat sports with you, and we're looking forward to a big year of fight things going on in 2026. We're going to start this show and this season of the show off with UFC 324, of course, happening tonight out there in Vegas. The first fight card for the UFC, the Paramount Plus era. We can't wait to see what it is like, the new production, the new things that they're going to do with this deal. A lot to talk about, some great fights. We'll go through them very quickly here on the show. We'll also very quickly recap the fight that we had last weekend for the BKFC 86 up there at the Mohegan Sun. You had the welterweight title on the line, headlining it. We'll touch on the top couple fights there that really matter that we saw on that card up there in Connecticut. All that coming up on today's show on Fighting Lines with Brian Ciano. Make sure you check the show out on all social medias. On X, it is at Fighting Lines. On YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, it is at Fighting Lines Pod. Make sure you follow, listen, subscribe, like on whatever platform you are partaking, whether it's YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. We are available on all that. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Let's get right into things and start talking about UFC 324. All right, well, just like our show, the UFC took an extended break for the holidays this year with a new deal coming up between getting out of ESPN and moving over to Paramount. So instead of having the normal schedule where you go till almost the end of the year and then starting up just a couple weeks later, they had over a month off here between when we last saw them at the Apex and when we now get to see them in Vegas for the first time on Paramount Plus. UFC 324, the first numbered event of the year and of this deal for the organization, gets underway tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern time. That's right. Don't forget, they moved up the start times for these Paramount Plus cards now. These numbered events are going to start an hour earlier than they used to. Love that. Hopefully, maybe we can even bump it up another hour in the future. We'll see. But right now, we get a little bit of a reprieve here as we start at 9 o'clock Eastern time. There is now one title fight, as we had two originally. This was supposed to be co-mained by, of course, the title fight between Amanda Nunes, the Lioness, returning from retirement to try to reclaim her old belt against Kayla Harrison, but that one is postponed. And that language, I think, plays a big part in what we can expect from this, because Kayla Harrison had to pull out of this fight just very close to it because, unfortunately, she had to have neck surgery. A lot of people were giving her crap, thinking that she was scared, that she didn't want to fight the Lioness, saying all the stupid things people say online when someone pulls out a fight, having no idea what's going on, until we find out later on from her manager, some parts of a team, that, she couldn't even lift her arm up. I think it was her left arm could not be even lifted up over the shoulder. And doctors told her that if she fought through it, as she had for years, she could have been paralyzed. So she had rushed into neck surgery, was flown up to New York by the UFC to get some very special, diagnosis by doctors up here, and was put right into surgery for her neck. And now will be out probably an extended period of time. Now, they said, 6 months recovery, could be back. Neck's tricky, especially in combat sports, especially in anything contact. That's very dangerous. And she was already on the verge of possible paralysis. This is someone who is a mother who has to worry about not just herself and her future here. So we'll see what goes on. This could be something that messes with somebody's head and makes them wonder if they want to come back at all. Hopefully she does. We really want this fight, but we want what's best for her. And we want what's best for everybody that steps into this cage for us. So let's not rush her back. Let's give her time and, get fully healthy and, have the time to think about what she wants to do and if this is something she wants to continue and put that at risk. But for now, this fight is off. There were a number of people who stepped up trying to get into this mix, trying to get on this card. Norma Dumont so that she would step in and try to do an interim title fight. The UFC would give it to her. And of course, she would have a great reason to be part of that. Number 3 in the rankings right now on a 6-fight win streak. So, of course, she would have won a shot at the title and shot the Lioness, even though that is a dangerous opponent anytime, let alone doing it on short notice. But the UFC decided not to do that. They also decided to not go for an outside-the-box idea where Amanda Serrano, the legendary women's boxer, and she has a little bit of a fight career in combat sports, in MMA at least, where she fought in Combat Global. But, of course, most of her bones made in the boxing ring, just coming off a recent fight for her, and said, I'll jump in there. Let's go. I'll do an MMA fight against the Lioness. I like to challenge myself. So pretty crazy for her to try to do that on short notice in a sport that she is not as well versed, but she was game. That would have been interesting to see how they could have possibly made that happen, because I don't know. Obviously, we said Combat Global was where she's done her MMA, but as a main boxer under the MVP banner, Jake Paul, of course, and Dana White do not like each other. So that would have been very interesting to see if that could have been made somehow, but we will not see that. We will see this fight completely off the card, and we'll probably put the Linus on the shelf, which is a smart thing. You know, she said she wants the Kayla Harrison fight. That's what she came back for. That's the thing that drove her to come out of retirement. And it's not worth the risk, probably, to make a situation where she could lose her luster if she comes back and at her age somehow is not the same fighter that we thought, or that was when she was in there fight after fight, and comes back and loses to somebody. Then the shine off the Kayla Harrison fight is done. I mean, she's still a legend, but it's not going to be as built up. So I'm sure the UFC does not want to do that if they can avoid it. They'll probably put her on the shelf for now, as long as she's okay with that, and then see what they can do from there as Kayla Harrison starts to recover from her surgery and work her way back, and see if they can make that happen maybe this summer or early in the fall. If they can do that, I'm sure that's what they will do. But for now, the champ is out, no interim belt, and we move on to the interim title fight that they made for a different belt. And that is going to be, of course, headlined by number 4, Justin Gaethje, and number 5, Paddy Pimblett, in the lightweight division, where they will fight for the interim lightweight title, trying to fight for the belt that, of course, Ilia Topuria holds currently, the main belt. They're trying to fight for an interim one for the chance to fight him later on in the year when he comes back from the personal issues he was dealing with his family and his children. Now, this isn't a fight that I love for this belt, if they're going to make one. There's one guy that obviously is absent, Arman Tsarukyan. We heard a lot about that over the last few weeks, especially Dana White even saying that some of the beef he had with Tsarukyan from many other things, from him pulling out of the title fight he had before this at the beginning of last year because of an injury, played into this, that him headbutting Dan Hooker at the weigh-ins when he finally came back probably played into this as well. So a lot of personal grudges at the UFC, holding back the number 1 contender for fighting for the interim title. So instead we get this one, but should be a banger. I like the fight. I just don't like it for the title. But it is between Gaethje and Pimblett. Gaethje, of course, the 37-year-old longtime UFC fighter, the highlight coming out of Denver, where his fight camp is, former collegiate wrestler, former interim lightweight champ, former BMF title holder, has done huge things for the UFC in every fight. He has 14 fights in the UFC, 14 bonuses, but coming in there with a 26-5 record, 9-5 in the UFC, never boring. You know, not the greatest record there, of course, because he came in early just swinging, and it was, I'm going to knock you out or you knock me out. Now has matured, has learned, has fought a little smarter in his later years. 4-3 in his last 7 fights, though. Alternating wins and losses pretty much, and coming off a decision win over Fiziev last March. So he's been on the shelf for a little while. Going here against Paddy Pimblett, who's also been hanging out for a little while after his last win in April with a 3rd-round TKO. That was the biggest win of his career over Michael Chandler. He comes in there 22-3 for his career, 31-year-olds from Liverpool. He is 7-0 in UFC. The baddie looking to put the interim title around his waist. Can he do it? I mean, he had a great fight against Chandler. That was the first time we really saw him against a really big name, high-level opponent. People had kind of poo-pooed him for a while in the UFC, saying that he wasn't worth the hype, that the baddie wasn't as good as people thought him to be. But that fight on Chandler put a lot of people on notice, made them think twice. Now he's going against Gaethje. How does this go? Well, according to the money line and how I think this fight goes, is Pimblett, -230. Now, Gaethje, of course, is a dangerous fighter. He can knock anybody out, so you can throw some money on him if you want. I think they're setting this up for Pimblett. I don't think they'd put him against Gaethje if they knew that he didn't have a really good chance to win. That's why he's not fighting Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan, I think, would run right through him and dominate him. Gaethje, of course, gives him a different danger zone there, standing on the feet with that power. But I think they know that baddie can try to neutralize him with some grappling, some wrestling, some other things. And I think he wins this fight. -230. Not the prettiest line. Well, you can get him by submission if you want it, +135. That is the shortest line as far as how he's going to win the fight on just his odds. But the way I want to play this, the way I like this, is over 2.5. 5-round fight. Both these guys on the shelf for a while. I think they're both really tough. Over 2.5 rounds is -116. I like that one. I think we get into the later edges of the 3rd, maybe even the 4th round, maybe even go the distance. So I'm going over 2.5 at -116 is my main bet for this fight. Then now the new co-main event is kind of a 1/2 part of a bantamweight tournament right now, as you have number 3, Sean O'Malley versus number 5, Song Yadong. We'll pair that with a fight earlier on the card that is another top-ranked matchup. And whoever has the best performance in this could obviously be in the mix to fight the champion, Petr Yan, if we don't put Rob Dvalishvili right back in there in a rematch for that title. So Yadong, the 28-year-old from China who trains out of Team Alpha Male in Sacramento right now, coming in there 22-8-1 in MMA, 10-3 in the UFC. Two of those losses of his three losses, though, are to Sandhagen and Yan. So to the best. It's not like this guy's lost to some guys who were just hanging around there and barely in the UFC. He's fought some of the best so far and has his struggles, and now he fights another one of the best in Sean O'Malley. Sugar Sean, 31-year-old from Montana, coming in there 18-3 in MMA, 9-3 in the UFC, but coming off back-to-back losses to Merab Dvalishvili. Had two chances at that title, could not get it over the machine, and now he comes back after a long layoff. He's going to have a few inches of height and reach advantage over Yadong. I like Sugar Sean in this one. I think this is going to be an awesome fight. I think this is one of them, like just about every one of the top 6 fights could steal fight of the night, could be the best one we see on the card. Could be a lot of action between these guys with the striking, but I think O'Malley right now is in a good position, minus 215, even though he's been out for a while, to come in there and get this fight, although it could be anyone's fight because the book is going heavy on it going the distance. Minus 280 for over 2.5 rounds. Minus 230 to go the distance. Minus 230 to end by points. So if you want to get the better value, O'Malley by points plus 115 gives you a little bit of juice there, gives you a little bit of extra love if he gets that victory. Under 2.5 at plus 210 is a good value for the rounds if you want to take a chance. Otherwise, you got to go O'Malley by points because all the other ways of playing it, of going long, is going the distance in this 3-round fight, is not going to get you the money. It's got to be O'Malley by points or the under 2.5 if you think somehow they get the finish. I don't think they do. I think both these guys are too tough. I think we go all 3 rounds, especially with the extended layoff they've been on. Then, one that's going to be really exciting. Do not leave the couch when this one starts because it might end quickly, and that is a battle at heavyweight between number 5, Waldo Cortes-Acosta, and number 8, Derek Lewis. Cortes-Acosta, Salsa Boy, the 34-year-old from the Dominican Republic, is on a little bit of a run here in heavyweight. Of course, had a big year last year, won 4 times in 5 fights. He wanted to even get another fight in there before the end of the year. They did not make that happen. They held him off a little bit and put him here against the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. Cortes-Acosta, 16-2 in MMA, 9-2 in the UFC, won 7 of his last 8 fights. Even pulled one out of the fire against Ante Delia there where it looked like he got TKO'd. They stop it, controversially restart it in Vegas on one of those fight nights saying it was an eye poke, and then he knocks Delia out, a guy who was on the trajectory to try to fight for the title. Instead, he gets his name up there in the rankings, and now he's coming off back-to-back wins off the Delia and then Shamil Gaziev, going against the Black Beast, Derek Lewis, the 40-year-old from Houston, 29-12 in MMA, 20-10 in the UFC. He's won his last 2 and 3 of his last 4. 16 of his UFC wins, including the last 6, were by KO TKO. A guy who is never boring, a guy who is in there to try to take your head off at every turn and can do it with any punch he throws. Coming off back-to-back wins with Rodrigo Nascimento and Taliesin Teixeira. Now coming in there and trying to stop the hype train of the Salsa Boy. Can he do it? I think so. I mean, this could go either way. I'm not going to say definitively that I think one guy or the other is clearly a better fighter. Both these guys have power. Both these guys have chins. But when you're going to give me Derek Lewis at plus 245 odds, I'm taking that chance. The guy has knockout power at every swing. How am I not going to take a plus 245 line on him and see if he can get me some good money there? Now, obviously, with these 2 heavyweights, knockouts they have, they don't think it's going the distance. Minus 280. Ending by KO TKO is minus 230. So not the best ways to play that, even though you'd love to. So what other ways can you do it? Now, another way you can play this is the total rounds. And, of course, with the big boys, you're probably thinking not too deep, especially with the way that they have been. The recency bias says go with the under 1.5, especially for plus 106 money. You get plus value on 2 guys that are knockout artists going not deep into a fight. That's the way I'm going to play it. Originally, I was looking at it, and you look back a little bit further past the recent knockouts, and there were some fighters that went deeper with them. Some guys that took them into decisions or later into the 3 rounds. And I wanted to go contrarian and try that out, but the odds just aren't worth it. The odds don't give you the love there, so I'm going to play the under 1.5 at plus 106 and expect these guys to come out swinging big. Also on the card, you have a women's flyweight battle with some title implications on the line. Number 2, Natalia Silva versus number 6, Rose Namajunas. Now, Namajunas, the 33-year-old fighting out of Denver, Thug Rose, former strawweight champion, of course, is coming in there 14-7 in her MMA career, 12-6 in the UFC. 3-2 since going to flyweight, though. She was a strawweight champion, of course, and then moved up. Now 3-2, not having the easiest time right now, coming off of a decision win, though, over Miranda Maverick last June. She was supposed to fight Alexa Grasso. So she was supposed to fight a former champion that could propel her into title contention. But Grasso pulls out. And instead, the fight gets even tougher, where now she gets Silva, the 28-year-old from Brazil, who was 19-5-1 in her MMA career and 7-0 in the UFC, unbeaten so far in the big show. She should be in line for the next title shot against Shevchenko. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going on with Shevchenko. She talked about trying to move up and fight Harrison or Nunes, which, of course, are on the shelf right now, given what's going on with Harrison, or doing other things. So does she defend this title now or soon? If she would, then that should be Silva's shot. But instead of waiting around and resting on those laurels and not taking the chance of messing that up, she's taking on a former title challenger and title holder in Rose Namajunas. So good on her. And I think she's going to get the win here. She's a big favorite, -420 on the money line. Now, other ways to play it, of course, since those are not nice odds, is playing it to go the distance. The last 7 fights for Thug Rose and the last 4 and 5 of the last 7 for Silva have gone all the way to the end of the 3 rounds. And it's only a 3-round fight, not even a title fight. But over 2.5 rounds is -460. To go the distance is -400. Those are almost as ugly as just betting Silva straight up. So how else can you play it? Silva by points is your best bet, -180. Still not the nicest line, still not getting plus money. So laying some juice there in order to get the win. But that is the best you're going to get in this fight as far as the odds are going. So if you want to bet this fight, you got to bet Silva by points if you like her. I mean, you can get some plus money, obviously, if you go Thug Rose, but I'm going to roll with Silva and her 7-fight win streak here against Thug Rose, who's had some struggles over the last couple fights. Then to start the main card at featherweight, you have number 6 Arnold Allen versus number 10 Gene Silva. Now, this could be a great fight, but the way this is placed is a little disappointing, honestly. I think this should have been the last prelim fight. We'll talk about the one that got that spot next, but for now, this is the one that's going to start off the card. Allen, the 32-year-old from England, coming in there, 20-3 in MMA, 11-2 in the UFC. Now, he lost 2 of his last 3, but that's Holloway and Evloev. So, big names, top guys in the division. Then he came back and won against Gaethje Chikazi in July. So now he's coming in there, trying to get his second win in a row, trying to stamp his name further in these rankings and climb back up towards the top against Gene Silva. The guy number 10 in these rankings, the 29-year-old from Brazil out of that Fighting Nerds team, 16-3 in MMA, 5-1 in the UFC. 4 of those 5 wins in the big show by KO TKO. He's coming off a TKO loss, though, to Diego Lopez last September. That crazy spinning back elbow where you had Silva kind of throwing those early in the fight and then gets caught with that later on. Kind of return to serve that propelled Diego Lopez into his title shot that he gets next week in Australia, taking a page off of Silva's book and knocking him out with what he was throwing. So now Silva trying to get back on track against Allen. I think he does. He's a big favorite here. Again, -290. So not a lot of pretty lines on this card throughout. Allen's never been finished. So even though Silva has a lot of KO TKOs, 9 of the 13 fights for Allen have gone the distance. So since it's a 3-round fight, I'm going to go that way. Over 2.5 rounds is -146. So not the best odds there. Ending by points is -130. So a little bit better, getting a little warmer, but you can play will the fight go the distance? Yes, at -118. So that's what I'm looking at there. And that way, I don't necessarily have to roll with just one guy. I can go either way. But I think it does go the distance, a 3-round fight between these two guys, despite the Silva knockouts. I think we get into later stages and into the end and into the judges' hands here in this battle. Now, the prelims end with a fight that I thought should have made the main card, especially when we lost that co-main event, because when you put it up there with that Sugar Sean fight against Song Yadong, you kind of have a mini bantamweight who's going to be the next title challenger tournament going on here. And that involves number 2, Umar Nurmagomedov versus number 7, Davison Figueiredo at bantamweight. I thought this should be on the main card, but you know what? They want to end that prelim card with a bang. So this is 2 big names, and they're going to try to bring them people in that way. I mean, usually you ended the prelim with a big fight because then you wanted to draw people over to the main card that they had to pay for on the pay-per-views. That's not the case anymore. So we could have structured it differently, but they decided not to and instead put this one there. And maybe it's because of the odds and how this fight is expected to go. Because Figueiredo, the 38-year-old Brazilian, is a former champion at Flyweight. 25-5-1 for his career, 14-5-1 in the UFC. And he's coming off a split decision win over Montel Jackson in October after a 2-fight losing streak. But now he's taking on top challenger in this division. But now he's taking on one of the top guys in this division in Nurmagomedov, the 30-year-old from Dagestan, the brother of PFL champion Usman Nurmagomedov, cousin of Khabib, coming in there 19-1 in MMA, 7-1 in the UFC. His only loss of his career to Merab Dvalishvili, to the Machine when he fought for that title. Trying to get back up there into that title picture, trying to get that title shot again with a big dominating win. He's coming off a unanimous decision win over Mario Bautista last October. Now trying to toss Davison Figueroa around like a rag doll like he did his last opponent. He's a huge favorite, minus 1,500. So I guess the UFC is saying this should be a dominating performance. So why put this on the main card? And that's why we're ending on the prelims. I mean, you have a guy that's ranked number 2 in the division on the prelim card. But again, probably because of how this is expected to go. Probably very methodical wrestling, takedowns, throws, beating him up. But I'm going to say it goes the distance because Figueroa is a tough guy to finish. He's going to be a tough guy to get down in general too, but not for Nurmagomedov. I think he still dominates. I think he still wins, but we get a go the distance performance here in the 3-round fight. So Nurmagomedov by points, minus 115 is how I'm going to play that one. So a bunch of fights there, a lot of great actions, a lot of ranked fighters to start off. The Paramount Plus era should be an exciting card. We did lose another fight as well. I forgot to mention, not just the Nunes-Harrison fight got pulled off, but we also lost one on the prelim card when we had to cancel between Ricky Turcios and Cameron Smotherman because of a very scary situation where Smotherman weighs in, makes weight, then starts to walk off the scale and off the stage there, and then collapses, face plants, just completely unconscious on the stage, faints. They had to revive him, get him up, get him out of there. They brought him to the hospital. He is doing well now. He made a statement online, on social media, posted a video saying he's not sure what happened. They're doing some tests. He had some through that came through. He already ran some tests that came through clean, CAT scans, CTs, things like that. But he's going to do more tests because they're not sure why he fainted because he didn't have a tough weight cut. Said he wasn't very far off when he came into Vegas this week. So he's not sure why he just collapsed on the stage there. So that fight, of course, that happening. No way you're going to run that fight, especially on a prelim fight there. So they pulled that one, and maybe we'll see them down the line. But right now, wishes to Smotherman on a recovery there. Wishes to Kayla Harrison on a quick and good recovery. Hopefully we see them both back in the cage for the UFC soon. But UFC 324 should be an awesome card kicking off the UFC Paramount Plus era, and we can't wait to watch it. All right, well, the BKFC kicked off their 2026 last week when they got the action going again. BKFC 86 up there at the Mohegan Sun. The back-to-back cards, they finished 2025 up there in Connecticut, and now they start 2026 there. And they started off with a title fight headlining it at welterweight. Julian Let Me Bang Lane versus the disciple Dustin Pague for that welterweight title. Now, of course, 2 former MMA fighters that were on tough, that were, had their career in the UFC. Pague, a longer career in the UFC than Julian Lane. But Lane had gone from losing a bunch of fights, wondering if he should hang him up, to going on a 5-fight win streak to win this title before coming into this fight. Now, Pague had come off a 2-fight win streak before this fight, trying to get his shot at the title, trying to get his first belt, his first title. And he came in there and put on a great performance. Both these guys did. This one went extra, overtime. We went into a 6th round for this one because it was tied after 5. Just a great battle between these two guys that eventually Dustin Pague comes out on top and is the new welterweight champion by decision after 6 rounds. It was a feeling out fight early. The first 20 seconds, not much throwing. Throughout the fight, these guys had a lot of respect for each other. Weren't just like trying to take each other's heads off. But 30 seconds in, Pague catches Lane with a left hook that drops him. Just a quick, short left hook. Caught him right on the spot, put Lane on the mat. He gets up because he's a tough SOB, but that changes the round right there right away. Instead of being a 10-9, it starts things off at a 10-8. And that would factor in huge for Pague because he goes on to win the second round as well, having a great round where he's moving around, landing from the outside, controlling things against Lane, not letting him get in there and brawl. So now he is up 3 points after 2 rounds. Then Lane turns things around. 3, 4, 5, all really good rounds for Lane. I think he won because now he's getting more aggressive. He's jumping in there, closing the distance, not letting Pague just control things from the outside, doing some, fight in the phone booth, inside things, dirty boxing, some clinch work, doing some great shots by him. Both guys are landing. It's not like Pague just hung it up after those first 2 rounds. But I thought Lane got the better of the action through rounds 3, 4, and 5. So now, big lead by Pague is all taken away. And we go through the judges' scorecards in the 5th round, and it's all knotted up on all 3 judges' scorecards. So we go to a 6th round, an extra round, as you can in the BKFC when things are knotted up like that. And the decisive round was very close. Could have gone either way. But what could be the big deciding factor in that, what got this belt around Pague's waist, is that late in the round, very late, almost at the end of the round, kind of catches Lane with a nice little short right that stumbles him slightly, ever so slightly, not like he went all the way across the ring, stumbling, barely holding up. Just shook him a little bit, and then Pague landed a few more shots. So in a very close round, that might have swayed the judges at the end there. A lot of recency bias on what you see at the end. That was a big shot that Lane took like a man. He stood, didn't go down, but still shook him enough to maybe sway the judges' opinions on who won that round. And that makes it so that Dustin Pague, the disciple, is now the new welterweight champion of the BKFC. Now, Lane was very surprised when they read that, when they read the judges' scorecards. He said in his interview afterwards in the ring that he thought he clearly did enough to win that round. He thought he should have won it, but was still respectful, still humble. With Dustin Pague taking that belt, was hanging in there in the ring, doing interviews afterwards, talking to Dustin Pague, but Dustin Pague now is the champion. He thanked God and gave a lot of credit to Lane. Talked about how tough he is. He said, we fight 10 times, he probably wins 5 of them. And that's how close that fight was. So it was an awesome battle to start things off on the main event for the BKFC, the first fight of 2026. And of course, next up for them is Knucklemania. And that should be even bigger with a lot of big names, but not the biggest card here up there at the Mohegan Sun. We'll touch on a couple other fights. So you also had a bantamweight fight between Jamel Herring and Matt Guymon. That's right, the former Olympian, former glove boxing champion, Herring making his BKFC debut following the footsteps of Trout there, trying to go from boxing champion to BKFC champion. We'll see if he can do that. Had a great start there against Guymon, who coming off a loss in his last fight to Royal Riot and Reber, so fighting the best in that division. Now bringing in the new fighter in Herring. And it was a clinic for Herring throughout most of his fight. He dominates on the judges' scorecards, get the unanimous decision win, as he just picks apart his opponent. Every time Guymon was trying to come in there, Herring used that great reach to knock him back with a stiff jab or hit him with a quick right. Some quick shots there. Every time his opponent tried to get in, close the distance, and get some action is when Herring made his move and did a great job with it. Caught him a couple times, put him on, not fully the mat in the second round, but got him to touch the mat in the second round, so that makes it a 10-8 round there. Then later on, the third round becomes a 10-8 round as well, not because Guymon went to the mat, but because Herring actually went to the mat. Because at one point, when they get him in the clinch, as Guymon tries to duck in and get in there to close the distance and get some shots in, he gets locked into the clinch underneath Herring, and in frustration just kind of picks up his head and his body and tosses Herring to the mat. So it's a point taken away from that as well. Another 10-8 round, and that makes the final judging 50-43 for Herring on all 3 judges' scorecards. Just a domination there by the former Olympian and glove boxing champion making his BKFC debut. We'll see what he can do as he goes further in this division. But he called out the champ there, the new champ, Justin Joyboy Ibarola, who just won that title. He said he was coming for him. Said that now it is the Jamel Herring show in the BKFC in that bantamweight division. So can't wait to see what is up next for him in this division in the BKFC. Another fight we'll touch on is at welterweight with Dalvin Blair fought Ramiro Figueroa. Blair was unbeaten 2-0 in the BKFC coming into this one with 2 first-round finishes. Going against Figueroa, who was coming off that win over H.D. Davis after losing to Get Down Brown, 2 guys who are, in the top of this, not in this division per se, but in the lightweight and other weight classes. So now coming up, Figueroa 2 welterweight here to fight against his opponent and did a good job. He picks him apart. He gets the win 49-46 on my scorecard. Got that on one of the judges' scorecards, got 48-47 on other ones. But I thought throughout this fight, he was just picking him apart for the outside. Just good technical fighting, good technical boxing. Blair was coming forward early on, but then Figueroa turned things around in that first round and started picking him apart, started put the pressure on him to take that round. I thought Blair had a good second round there where Figueroa actually goes down. It's ruled a slip, but still I thought Blair went back to being more aggressive. Once Figueroa got up, I thought he went back to trying to close the distance and put Figueroa on his back foot, and I thought he won that second round. But then round 3, 4, and 5 is back to Figueroa just from the outside, picking apart Blair, landing some good shots, blooding him up. I thought it was a good technical fight for him, and we'll see if that gets him into the top of this division or whatever division he's going to stick at and continue to fight at, and we'll see what is next for Figueroa. But definitely a tough fighter, and Blair, I'm sure, will be back in there as well and trying to climb into those rankings and do good things because only his first loss in the BKFC, but tough opponent, a tough loss against Figueroa. That's going to do it for first episode of 2026 of Fighting Lines with Brian Ciano. Trying to keep it a little shorter and sweeter for you now. There are some of the news items Then I'll hit on with some short videos on the social media, so make sure you check us out at X on Fighting Lines, at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Fighting Lines Pod. Give you some more things that happened while we were off, some other news items that are worth talking about. Try to give you some short videos on that on social media, so make sure you check all that out. And make sure you like, subscribe, and keep following us on whatever platform you are partaking in the show, whether it is YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. We love talking to you every week. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back next week where I recap UFC 324, where we preview UFC 325 in Australia, right back into it, right back into the numbered cards, back-to-back weeks here for the UFC start off 2026. We'll also preview that Ring 6 fight card between Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson that's happening in NYC. We'll talk about that first TKO boxing card that happened yesterday, and we'll hit on some more news and notes around combat sports. All that coming up on next week's episode of Fighting Lines with Brian Ciano. Thanks so much. Talk to you next week.